He's Mike Greenberg. He is ESPN's host of Get Up, also Sunday NFL Countdown, and has a new book out called Got Your Legends, ranking America's sports franchises and their most iconic figures. He collaborated with his great producer, Hembo, and he's ranking the NFL, NBA, baseball, NHL franchises from best to worst, and a Mount Rushmore of legends for each. The book, Got Your Legends. Greeny, good to talk to you again. When
Dan,
did you come up with the idea about this?
well, I'll tell you all about the book in a second. But first
Okay.
and foremost, it is always a thrill and an honor for me to be on here with you and the guys. So hello to everybody. And second, I need you to settle a bet for me. Were you at the Nate Bargatze concert at Madison Square Garden 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. So I was sitting there and someone walked by and I said, I'm 99% sure that's Dan Patrick. And Stace said, go find, go say hello. And I said, I will. And I got up and I couldn't find you. You had walked in and you kind of walked, you made like a turn, you went around a curve. I don't know where
Yep.
you went. And then I couldn't find you. And the people I was with said, that wasn't Dan Patrick. And you don't know Dan. If you went over to talk to Dan Patrick, you wouldn't even know who you were. And I said, I guarantee you Dan Patrick would know who I was. I'm going to find him. And I was distracted through the entire Jimmy Fallon portion of the evening trying to find you, and I never did again. So I am now confirming on the record that was indeed you.
Yes, it was. Went with my family, had a great time, and his dad was great up there. Jimmy Fallon was great up there, and I had not seen Nate. I'd seen his stand-up on Netflix, and my daughter's the one who said, Dad, you'll love him, because it's just everyday situations that he's talking about that we can all relate to, but he does it in a, an impressive way. And I met him backstage afterwards, and you see Chris Rock there. Well, that's testament to how good you are that Chris is coming out to watch you perform. So
When
very
Jimmy
enjoyable.
Fallon is opening for you, you
I
know that
know.
something. And we saw him. We had friends who had been turned on to him, and we went to see him at Radio City maybe a year and a half or so ago before he blew up so big that he's now hosting the Emmys and all of that. And it sort of led to an interesting debate, which is, can you laugh too loudly at a comedy show? My wife yelled at me. Here's another of those, that I was laughing too loudly, and I said, honey, I really think the comedian probably likes it when you laugh loudly. Sort of the idea of the entire exercise. So I got chastened for laughing too much at the Nate Bargatze concert.
Yeah, I'm sure Nate would be fine. Although there are times when you can hear a stand-up act and you can hear a laughter that might be annoying.
Yes.
Like there's now I don't know if it was high. I don't know how your laugh is, but if it's high pitched or something, then he probably would have singled you out and made fun of you.
Yeah. I was not close enough to the stage at Radio City that
Oh,
he would have heard it. She was convinced I was drowning him out for the people around us. Anyway, I'm glad that we settled that. Thank you for taking care of that for me. How's everything else going?
everything's spectacular. So you dive into this topic, not an easy topic to kind of, well, it's not one topic, it's a variety of them. But when did you decide that, all right, America needs this?
So I had this idea. It's the third book that we've done, Hembo and I. So if you know Hembo, his research is ridiculous. Like he is whatever the geniuses are at NASA that are eventually going to put a man on Jupiter. That's what Hembo is to sports research. And during COVID, I had this idea. It just came up from an idle conversation we were having with someone you'll remember, Pete McConville from ESPN, who's
Mm-hmm.
one of the few people who has been around as long as you and I, and about which players own each individual numbers, like the uniform numbers. Like 23 clearly belongs to Michael Jordan, and 99 belongs to Wayne Gretzky. But how about all these other numbers? Who owns them? And I thought that might make an interesting book. So we did a book called Got Your Number, in which we assigned that who owns every number from 1 to 100. And candidly, it sold better than the publisher expected it to. So they said, come up with another idea. So then I figured, I've been doing sports talk for 30 years. So we came up with a book. The second one was called Got Your Answers, in which we picked the 100 best sports debate topics and sort of using his research answered them. And that also did well. So we had another idea. Hembo said, let's do the Mount Rushmores. You and I have both done, and so has every sports fan. And frankly, it goes beyond sports. Like, what's the Mount Rushmore of this? What's the Mount Rushmore of rock guitarists? What's the Mount Rushmore of stand up comedians? The Mount Rushmore of this or that or the other. So we decided, using his research, to come up with the Mount Rushmore of every team in the four sports, as you just said, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball. And so we chose those. And then it was my job to write it. The way we do the books is he does the research and then I do the writing. I sat down to write it and I realized we don't really have a construct for how we're going to lay them out. So do we just do them by sport? Do we do them alphabetically? Neither of those, none of the ideas I had seemed interesting. So we said, well, hell with it. Let's just rank all of the teams from, the best one to the bottom one. So the best one is the Yankees, and some of the teams that have just come into existence are down at the bottom, and using winning percentage and championships and all sorts of other things. So the book sort of has two separate areas for debate, which is, did you agree with the people that we chose to be the Mount Rushmores of literally every team? And then do you agree with the way that we ranked them? And whether you agree or disagree, hopefully it'll be fun to read. And what I like the most about it, because I, Dan, grew up reading a ton of sports history books. I read a lot about sports history, and I feel like that's sort of a lost art, if indeed that is an art. Not enough of that going on. So there's a ton of sports history in it. There's a ton with his research. There's a ton. You will learn a ton about athletes you may not know a whole lot about, because some of them are contemporary, but some of them are played decades and in some cases even a century ago. So hopefully, whether you agree or disagree, you'll learn some stuff about some of the great athletes of all time.
What's the sports debate that leaves you frustrated?
Um, well, I mean, the contemporary ones, like the what my mind goes to when you ask me that question are, what are the go-tos that those of us who did sports talk that depended on phone calls, which is what I used to do before I came to ESPN. I started out in Ray. You were working your way up like as a TV guy and CNN and ESPN and SportsCenter and everything. I came a different route. I came from sort of the traditional, call this number right now and let's have this argument. So I go back to the ones that were just on a slow day, you just throw this question out and they would do your show for you. So the big one in the 90s was, does Pete Rose belong in the Hall of Fame or not? So I don't know if it frustrates me, but it's a question that people are so divided on. The people on either side of it feel so strongly and passionately about their respective sides. And this, of course, was long before Pete died. So that it was a really good, fun, easy debate to throw out there. The Michael versus LeBron thing now, I guess, is sort of this generation's debate. And I can tell you that, like, my son is a crazy basketball fan, grew up playing nothing but basketball. He's 22, and he never stops telling me that LeBron is the greatest player of all time. And it makes me crazy, but you just had to have seen it. I will forever be a Michael guy. I remember sitting with you in the bowels of the old Chicago Stadium when I was covering those Bulls teams, because I worked locally in Chicago, and you would be in town to cover the finals. And you'll remember hanging out with like Terry Boers and Jesse Rogers, all those guys you used to hang out with, and those were my friends. And so you were there, and I was like, wow, Dan Patrick is here, and I would just sit at the table and listen. Anyway, the point is, I always tell younger people, if you didn't watch Michael Jordan play, then I can understand why you don't know the answer to this question. But maybe the best way I can explain it is, if there was one game of basketball being played and my life depended upon the outcome, I would pick Michael Jordan first, and then I would make whatever plans you want to make for the extended future, because he was going to find a way to win better than anyone else would. So anyway, those are the two that jump to my mind when you ask the question. I don't know if it's exactly what you meant, but that's sort of where my head went.
But do you provide information? Does Hembo provide information so you can win your sports debates?
100%. That's the idea here, is that our debates, particularly in the second book and in this one as well, every argument we make is based on all of this data. I mean, in this day and age, there is so much data and information that's available inside and outside of sports that we're not really debating. We're telling you the data says these four people are the best, or the data says this guy was the best at this or that. Now, as you and I both know, no matter how old you are, I think younger people have a greater appreciation of data now than people our age. But at the same time, I don't think anyone thinks that the numbers tell the entire story. There's a science to it, and that's really what is provided in the book. Hopefully, the writing adds a little bit of the art to it, because in the judgment of anything, there's both of those. But yes, every single argument that we make in all three of the books, and especially this one, because we're literally talking about four people from 124 different teams, every single one of them is based, for the most part, on the research that Hembo does, which on some level is almost indisputable.
Talking to Mike Greenberg. He has a new book out. It's called Got Your Legends, Ranking America's Sports Franchises and Their Most Iconic Figures. Give me the team that was the toughest to come up with its Mount Rushmore.
Well, the toughest and easiest at the same time probably was the top team, which is the Yankees, which is to say, when you do the Mount Rushmore of the Yankees, the people you're leaving off, if you pick the top four people that you're leaving off, they would probably be better than the Mount Rushmore of almost any other team in sports. So I'll just tell you, the four people not on the Yankees Mount Rushmore are the only player ever unanimously elected to the Hall of Fame, which is Mariano Rivera, the face of the sport for 2 decades, which is Derek Jeter, the player who won the most World Series of any in history, which is Yogi Berra, and the most infamous, notorious, significant, important owner in sports for a generation, which is George Steinbrenner. So that foursome would probably be almost as good as just about, once you get past like the Lakers and a few of the others, that would probably be better than the Mount Rushmore of any other team. But the Yankees had Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, and Mickey Mantle, and so there's just no, in my opinion, there's no debating those. So it was painful to leave the people off that we left off, but it was easy to choose. I'll tell you what was hard, because we did include some announcers. Like Vin Scully is on the Dodgers Mount Rushmore. Bob Uecker is on the Milwaukee Brewers Mount Rushmore. But we decided in all cases we would break a tie in the favor of players. There were managers, there were coaches, there were executives. But in all cases, the light just went out of my office because I didn't move. Hold on a second. Wait, let me. Sorry, I didn't know that would happen. Hold on one second.
Times are tough there at the mothership. All right.
I just yes. If they think the office is empty. Sorry about that. Leaving like Jack Buck off of the St. Louis. I've had a lot of people from St. Louis that are mad that we left Jack Buck off of the Cardinals list, and some of the other announcers that if we were going to include any announcers, we should have gone all the way and put on those. Like Ernie Harwell isn't on the Tigers list, and Jack Buck isn't on the Cardinals list, and there are a few others. And again, that was really, and we write about, I write chapters on every one of these, so their names are mentioned in all of them. But those were tough decisions to make. I'll tell you another one. I have some Green Bay Packer fans, like people who really know the history of that franchise, that are upset that we didn't include Curly Lambeau. And we do write a lot about him. Obviously, his name is on the stadium. But we felt, you had to put Lombardi on the list, and then we put the 3 quarterbacks. It just seems, you've got Bart Starr, you got Brett Favre, you got Aaron Rodgers, all the MVPs that they won. Starr still has the best postseason winning record of any quarterback in history, and is the only quarterback in the modern era to win 3 straight championships. People think it's never been done, but that's wrong. They just didn't call it the Super Bowl when he won the first of those 3, but he won 3 in a row. It felt like those 3 had to be on, but there are a lot of people who think if you don't include Curly Lambeau, you're making a mistake. So we've had a lot of pushback. The really passionate fans of different places will have pretty strong opinions.
I know that you're a pronounced Jets fan, but
oh God.
Now, I don't have any allegiance anymore. When I got to SportsCenter, I shed my allegiance to anything with the Bengals or the Reds. It was easier for me to do it that way. But you go to work on that Monday after a Sunday with the Jets, or after, there's sports depression. But you still have to do your job. Like, there's no loss that affects me with the Reds or the Bengals, the teams that I grew up rooting for, where I go into that next day. But do you just absorb it? Like, are you conditioned? You just go, okay, this is what it means to be a Jets fan.
At this point, I think my sports soul is calloused enough to sort of absorb the depression that is being a Jet fan. It's interesting because I host 2 different shows, and this has always been my philosophy, Dan, and I'm not sure how you see it, but when you're hosting a show like SportsCenter, as you did for all those years, as well as anyone ever did, or if, in my case, when I host the Sunday morning countdown show, or when I host the NFL draft. Those are shows people are not watching because I'm on them. They're watching them because they're fans of the sport. When I was hosting the NBA, they're watching because they're fans of the sport. No one but my mother is watching because they want to hear what I have to say. And so in those cases, I don't bring my fandom to that conversation at all. I don't treat the Jets or any other team that I pay attention to any differently than I do any other team. On talk shows that are my own shows, so when we were doing Mike and Mike, or now when I do Get Up, I figure the reason people are watching is because of your personality. It is because of who you are. They're tuning in to hear what you have to say about things. And in those, like, that's how I got to this. I didn't play, I'm not a former athlete. I'm just a fan. I'm just a kid who grew up loving sports in the 1970s, and those are my teams. So I've never made any secret. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the way that started was your friend and mine, Robin Roberts, on a Saturday morning Sports Center, right before Robin left to do GMA. I was hosting a Saturday morning Sports Center with her, and the Jets were playing a playoff game that night. And this was before there was Mike and Mike. This was before any of that. And I had never acknowledged what team I rooted for. I would have thought that would be totally verboten, that I would, Norby would call me in and fire me if that came up on the air. And in my own little private way, I wore a green tie that day. That's it. Said nothing of it, just as wearing a green tie. And then in one of those little moments that you have for chit chat on SportsCenter, where there would be like that little interaction, Robin says, "Greeny, I see that green tie. Obviously, you got that on for the big Jets game tonight." And I thought, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Here I am. I'm anchoring ESPN News 5 days a week. They put me on SportsCenter like once a month. I'm getting this chance, and now I'm getting, outed as a fan of a team. This is going to be the worst thing that ever happened to me. And obviously nothing terrible happened. And then it wasn't until we started doing Mike and Mike that I thought, well, what am I going to sit here talking about? What is we can't just sit here and analyze in a dry way all the X's and O's of all these games. People want to hear what your passion is. So we talked about that. And there's no question I talk about the Jets differently than I do other bad teams in the sport. It's just the way it's going to be.
Before I let you go, Fritzy, who you know well, wants to try out as an announcer for Get Up. And he has a Get Up tease that he would like to read for you. So, Todd, you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Good morning. You thought the Yankees were done, but who are we to judge? The captain spread some Tuesday night fever as the Bronx Bombers are staying alive. It took a while to get things racing in the Motor City, and then Seattle slew. Did LeBron make the wrong decision again? Wait until you see the reaction. It would be a sobering end for the Cubs with old Milwaukee. Brotherly glove, can the Phils catch up with those artful Dodgers? An angry bird is fined in Arizona. And are you fined with Jerry's bird flip explanation? If a puck drops on the ice and no one saw it, did it really happen? Yes, the NHL is underway. And he got rescued from the dog pound in Cleveland by Cincinnati? We'll tell you why it's not wacko for the Bengals to buy into Flacco. It's time to get up.
Okay. That is very well done. Fritzy, you only missed one thing. Somehow, some way, you have to get the Cowboys in. I mean, we can't possibly do it.
It's true.
You can't.
Well, no, we had Jerry flipping off the crowd, so we did squeeze in a Cowboy. Didn't get Dak in, but you got Jerry in there.
Oh, I must have been laughing over that one. That's extraordinarily well done. I will steal most of those puns from you. I particularly like Seattle slew. That one goes. For those who remember, that's a very well played one.
Thanks, bud.
Greeny, good to talk to you. Good luck with the book, and thanks for joining us.
Great to see you. It is a delight to be on. Great to see you, Dan, and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Greeny. The book is called Got Your Legends, Ranking America's Sports Franchises, their most iconic figures. He's Mike Greenberg.